In this video, I'm going to break down the exact step-by-step guide on how to get every single logical reasoning question correct on the LSAT. My name is Diego Sarmiento. I was one of only 26 people in the entire world in 2024 to score a perfect 180 score on the LSAT. It got me into Harvard Law School. It got me into Stanford Law School. Now I'm a 1L at Harvard. And over the past year, I've tutored over hundreds of students taking their scores from the 150s into the 170s. So right now, let's go over what logical reasoning strategy did I use to get a 180 and what logical reasoning strategy do I, give to all of my students so that they could get from the 150s to the 170s. So what most tutors teach is to obsess over different question types and to do gimmicks like reading the question first or diagramming and really overcomplicating logical reasoning. But what really works for me and for my students is simplifying the test down, going back to the basics, having a simple process that we could repeat for every single logical reasoning question, and simply using that. And over time, by doing the test and by reviewing the test, that's how we improve. So, but what is this, simple method that I teach my students that we could use for every single logical reasoning question to get it right? I call it the simple three-step method. Because it is simply only 3 steps that we could use for every single logical reasoning question. The first step is something I call active reading. What is active reading? Active reading basically means when we read a sentence, we don't move on to the next sentence until we've completely understood that sentence that we've read. So basically what a lot of students, usually do on the LSAT is they read a sentence, they don't really understand it, and they move on to the next sentence. And they do that for the whole passage until they finish reading the passage and they pause and they think, I don't really know what I just read. And they have to go and reread the entire passage. That's what we want to avoid. So instead what we want to do is we want to go sentence by sentence and not move on to the next sentence until we've completely understood the sentence that we've just read. That's the first step for active reading. The second step is we want to react to every sentence we read before moving on to the next sentence. What is this reaction? It could be any reaction. It could be thinking, oh, this is an interesting sentence, or it could be thinking, oh, I've learned about this in my classroom or in my work, or I disagree with it, or I agree with it. Any sort of reaction works. We simply want to react to it so that we engage with it, and it helps us comprehend and ingrain the material into our heads so that we don't have to keep going back and forth from the passage to the question. So step 1, active reading. We don't move on to the next sentence until we've understood what we've read and until we've actually had some sort of reaction to it. Step number 2 is we want to dissect and destroy the argument. So once we've actively read the entire passage, usually on the LSAT, the passage is either making an argument. 80% of the time it's making an argument. 20% of the time it's just giving us a set of facts with no argument. If they're giving us a set of facts, we simply want to just understand those facts and understand what they imply. But usually it's making an argument. And when it's making an argument, we want to dissect this argument and we want to destroy this argument. What does this mean? Well, dissecting the argument basically means we want to identify what role each sentence plays in the argument. So for our sakes and purposes, we could simply, identify sentences as either being a conclusion sentence or a support sentence for that conclusion. So when I say dissect the argument, we want to identify what sentence is the conclusion and what sentences are the support for the conclusion. Once we've done that, then we destroy the argument. We could dissect and destroy the argument. What does destroy the argument mean? We want to try to find a flaw in the argument because 80% of the arguments on the LSAT are flawed arguments. So we want to, once we've dissected the argument, we want to try to find what is the flaw of the argument? What is wrong with the argument? What is the hole in the argument? Sometimes 10% of the time, the arguments are solid and have valid logic. In that case, we just move on to the question. But the majority of the time, we want to find that flaw in the argument. So once we've done steps 1 and 2, again, once we've actively read the passage and then dissected and destroying the argument, only then do we read the question. So this whole time, we haven't even looked at the question yet. But once we get to step 3, we want to read the question, and then step 3 is to make a strong prediction for what we think the answer is before reading the answers. So this is really what separates, students whose score stagnates and those students who get in the 170s. It's making predictions. And it's not even really to be able to predict, exactly what the right answer is, even though when you become more advanced, like 50% of the time you'll be able to predict it. But some of the times, your prediction won't be exactly correct, but that's okay. The purpose of doing a prediction is to further engage with the material and to build up confidence so that you go into the answer choices with a lot of confidence. So once we've actively read the passage, once we've dissected and destroyed the argument, only then do we read the question and do step number 3, which is make a prediction. And only then do we even think about looking at the answer choices. But by this point, we've done so much work up front. We understand the passage super well because we actively read. We know what the flaw is in the argument. We know what role each sentence plays. At this point, almost any question will be very manageable to do because of the background work that we've done up front. It'll be easy to predict, and then by the time we get to the answer choices, it is like clockwork. You will be able to get a lot of these correct. If any of this, sounds confusing and you want more individualized support, you could go to the link in the description and purchase a month of my tutoring. It comes out to less than $20 an hour. Our students have seen great results, taking a lot of them from the 150s into the 170s. I'm really proud to say, it comes out to less than $20 an hour. We'd love to have you here. But yes, that's a simple 3-step method. We don't need to worry about obsessing over question types. We don't need to worry about diagramming or gimmicks like reading the question first. We simply want to focus on this simple 3-step method. And now that we know this, do this for every single logical reasoning question and focus on doing the test and reviewing the test. That's how you're going to improve. You're not going to improve by reading textbooks or learning question types. You learn by having a method and then doing the test and reviewing the test. If you want to, learn more about what's a good study schedule to use to study for this LSAT, you could watch some of my older videos on a good study schedule. You could watch other videos to learn about reading comprehension. If you guys have any questions, put it in the comment section below. But please take this logical reasoning advice. It really worked for me. It works for a lot of my students, and we need more lawyers. We need more students, especially at schools like Harvard Law School, Yale Law School, Stanford Law School. So I'd love to see you here. I'd love to see you in the tutoring community, and I'll see you soon. Bye, y'all.